Hi, welcome to Everbox Guitar Tuition. So another classic album inspection. Remember to share and subscribe if you enjoy these. So not a typical album to do by this artist, but I think it's a key album in his canon and one that made an impact on me at the time. And it's Dio's 2002 album Killing the Dragon, released on May the 21st, so 20 years old today, one of a younger anniversary than I usually do. But basically, the 90s have been, like a lot of artists, the 90s have been difficult for Dio. So he did the Lock Up the Wolves album, which is quite highly thought of by a lot of people, with Rowan Robinson on guitar. Then he kind of got Tracy Ginn, and he did a really kind of heavy, snarly album with Strange Highways, which was kind of building on the sound that he'd done with Black Sabbath on Dehumanizer. But then he made what people definitely consider his poorest album, Angry Machines, and he was seeing that he got too far away from the classic Dio sound. I think the issue with this was, in the era, like the heritage artists, or what would become heritage artists, like Dio, like Priest, all those people, we're kind of trying to work out how do we fit in, with grunge has come, we've had thrash metal, then grunge, and then alternate rock, and then new metal. And they were kind of like caught like headless chickens a bit, a lot of these artists, I think. And then what Dio does, he has a big break after 96. He's still gigging in 98, but I think he has a good 12 months off or more. And then he comes back on the Magica album. Now, I think there used to be a lot of love for this at the time, but I've seen quite a few people turning on it recently because it's got a crazy concept. But I think the important thing with Magica is it sounds like Dio's supposed to sound. It actually sounds mostly like Dream Evil, I think. Craig Goldie's back on guitar. So he's got his rainbow style riffs. He's got this crazy concept, which I quite like. If I've got a criticism of that album, it's quite long and it's a bit mid tempo. It's a little ploddy, but it sounds like Dio. People expecting the sound. It's got a Dio heritage sound. So what happened was, with this album, Killing the Dragon, Craig Goldie was all set to do it. He'd co-written, I'm just checking my notes here, apologies, I'm on the wrong page, sorry. He'd co-written 3 tracks on it, but I think he couldn't do it. I don't know if for some reason, I think his girlfriend or having a child or something like that. So Ronnie Dio got Doug Aldrich in. Now, Doug Aldrich was considered with the job for Dio back on the Lock Up the Wolves album. But for whatever reason, Ronnie Dio decided to go with Rowan Robinson. But I think it's one of the key things. It's no secret I'm a huge Doug Aldrich fan. And I just think Doug really contributes. He doesn't contribute much to the writing on this. There's just a couple of co-writes. But his guitar sound and his style and attack really fit really well on this album. And I think this is the best sounding Dio album. It sounds as good, well, it certainly sounds as good as Holy Diver. It's got a modern production. It's got a clean sheen. The drums are punchy but natural. The bass is big and fat, but has enough kind of toppy click. But the guitars are kind of got this nice gain on the Marshalls that are, there's enough hair there for it to be robust, but not too much that it's overcooked. It's got a tight, classic sound with a modern twist. Doug's lead tone's really cool, and Ronnie Dio, obviously, he's in fine form. I mean, he is 60 when he does this album, and you wouldn't know it. And yeah, Jimmy Bain co-writes most of the tracks with Dio, actually. That's it, they did a lot together, and then I think Jimmy Bain left after this. It was all left in a bit of a cloud. But it opens with the title track, which is 4 minutes 25. This is great. It's got a great gallop. I mean, already it's kind of more up-tempo and getting away from that kind of slow and mid-tempo thing. A bit of a gallop, which Dio hadn't done for a while, I think. He'd be going back to Don't Talk to Strangers, I think. Really good, I'm not sure what his lyrics are going on about. It's got a fantastic guitar solo by Doug Aldrich on this. I mean, I think Doug Aldrich is one of the best hard rock, if not the best hard rock player, with that kind of bluesy style but robust of the last 20-25 years maybe. But up until this point, he didn't really get the recognition he deserved, but obviously doing the Dio gig gave him a better platform. But solo on this is phenomenal. It's really cool. And yeah, I think it's a really, really cool opening track. I first heard this album, actually. I went in a music shop near where I live in Newcastle, and the mate who worked in there, he said, "Oh, you had a new Dio album?" I said, "No," and he said, "Oh, Doug Aldrich is on it, I want to hear it." He goes, "Oh, do your tape copy?" And he did me a tape copy. I thought, "Oh, this is really good." So like later on, a few months later, I went to Prague on a trip, and I found a copy in a shop there that was a reasonable price, and the guy called it Dio, actually pronounced it that. Anyway, I've digressed. Next track is actually the weakest track, Along Comes a Spider. When I listened before, I was kind of liking the sound of it more. It's just kind of missing a chorus, I think, this. Like the solo's a bit meandering. Verse is good. Dio does some nice melodies on it. But the album picks up again. Actually, Long Comes Spider's the shortest track, 3:32. Next track's 5 minutes 2, so a bit of a longer track. This is Scream. This is co-written by Doug, and you can hear it. It's got some great Aldrich riffing on this. Nice atmospheric verse. And great, again, a really good hook from Ronnie and a great lead break from Doug. And it's quite ploddy, got a slow gallop to it, but I don't know, I think this is a really cool track, I love it. Then you got Better in the Dark, so this is just a Dio Bain composition. It's kind of got one of those rainbow style riffs, really like it. How long is this one? 3:43, yeah. Got a cool lyric from Ronnie, it's catchy, good lead break, and again it's more up tempo, again breaking from Magica's slight ploddiness. And then it's not side one, but it would be if it's vinyl, is Rock and Roll. So this was written in response to September 11. I don't know how the lyrics really fit in with that, but after September 11, in the aftermath, some radio stations stopped playing heavy metal for some reason. What that had to do with terrorism and September 11, we don't know, but Ronnie Dio was pissed off. He wrote a song about it. And there's some, if you read into the lyrics, some cool references in it. This is 6 minutes 11, so it's quite epic. Now, this is very slow and ploddy, but it works well. And it's got a really cool, interesting Doug solo. He does something kind of different from what he normally do. I like it. Really good. Then you've got a track which is probably the most well-known track on the album, which is Push. So this was a single, but it got more exposure because the video features Jack Black at the height of his Tenacious D fame. There's a great bit there, him and Kyle playing Heaven and Hell, I think, and Ronnie comes along down the street in LA and then pays them not to play. Absolutely brilliant, and it was great to see Dio. I mean, the guy, people forget, like, people are, Ronnie James Dio, best metal singer ever now. They forget how low his stock, how mocked Dio was. He was mocked in Kerrang, for his height. He was kind of mocked for the dragon thing, going back into the sort of mid-late 80s. And then these guys were persona non grata in the 90s, in a way. And it's just staggering, really. But fortunately, they got the respect eventually that they deserved. So Push is a great track again. I really like the lyric. It's a classic sort of Dio, kind of like stand up and shout. You've got to motivate yourself. You've got to drive the car. You've got to hold the steering wheel. A nice solo from Doug, really well practiced. It's got lots of punch and energy, this track. It sounds like it's got a bounce to it. And the band, you can almost feel like they're really feeling it. And then there's Guilty. A little sort of more ploddy, this kind of Rock and Roll Children. But it's a nice track. How long is this one? 4:25 again. Like I said, most of these songs have got tight arrangements. There's 3 that are over 5 minutes or 6 minutes. The rest, I think the album's 45 minutes. So it's a good running length. This is good. Really nice Doug solo again. And then Throwaway Children. So this is the next track. This was intended as a Hearing Aid 2 track to sort of carry on the Hearing Aid charity thing. But that didn't happen. It's a good lyric. 5 minutes 35. Craig Goldie co-wrote this. A nice Doug solo again, more on a neck pickup. And then you've got Before the Fall, 3 minutes 48. Again, it's that up-tempo, sort of long-lived rock and roll type of riff, the Blackmore style riff. This is really like the lyric on this. It's all about kind of band. You go to Los Angeles to try and make it in the music biz. You're in your band and you fall out and so on, or you get caught up in the machinations of the industry. And then it finishes with Cold Feet, which is kind of probably going back. It's got a bit of a kind of like Rainbow. Those tracks like off Richard Batwell's Rainbow D, Close Her Eyes, stuff like that. Maybe even going back to Elf kind of thing. I don't know Elf stuff that well, but it's kind of a bit of a slinky riff, quite a jolly vocal. And sorry, I'm just moving a message out of my screen there, which is really irritating me. Sorry. So yeah, it's a good finishing track. It's a nice outro solo from Doug. So it's a very consistent record, this. I think if it's missing something, it misses like a classic classic Dio track. You know, it doesn't have like "Don't Talk to Strangers" or a "We Rock" or something like that. But at the time, for me, you know, it was sort of indicated that traditional heavy metal was coming back. You know, in 2000 you had Brave New World, Maiden, and Resurrection, Rob Halford, and that was a sign that the artists would, you know, leaving the 90s sort of, all right, we're not sure what to do, we're just going to be ourselves. And then did a Magic album, and he did this because Doug was in the band. I was like, right, I must see Doug Aldrich play, and I went to see the band in Manchester. That was a memorable trip, and it was just great to see Doug play because I hadn't seen him before. But Dio was just like blown away. I was like, oh, this guy's majestic. You know, I'd forgotten how great he was in some ways. Although I was, you know, listening to Sabbath and Rainbow and stuff at home, but you know, it was a good show. They played a really good set, and you know, it's a really fond memory for me. So whenever I listen to this album, it reminds me of that time. But in a way, it reminds me principally of that thing where the type of kind of metal, traditional metal that I like, and maybe you guys watching this like, was coming back. And later on, I checked out Saxon Lionheart. That would be another album. You know, again, a spin on traditional metal is really good. Scorpions came back, you know, Unbreakable, some good stuff. Yeah, it was recorded at Total Access Recording Redondo Beach, so good studio. Simon Wright on drums, obviously really tight. Bane on bass, Doug on guitar, Ronnie on vocals. Scott Warren plays keys on Before the Fall, and Wyn Davis engineered. So he's quite a well-known engineer. Only made number 199 in the Billboard charts, but I think it was key in it helped Dio get, you know, his profile back up again, and then of course he went there back to Heaven and Sabbath, Heaven and Hell, and then he was playing big venues again, and that's what he was doing up into his death, and that's cool. You know, Ronnie Dio should be seen and heard by as many people as possible. So, and he was at the end. Great. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.